Welcome. I'm Annie. This is my mom, Laurel, and we're here at the Florida Native Plants Nursery.
We're finding that more and more people are coming in to garden for wildlife. They generally start with the monarch butterfly garden, and then they quickly move into the joy of gardening for all the different animals that live in the environment with us. And we're talking about birds, and we're talking about all different species, not only those that live here year round, but those that migrate through. It's a wonderful way to garden. We say native plants add life to your landscape, and they really do.
Let me show you some of my favorite plants for birds. Here we are in one of my favorite parts of the nursery. We have a lot of understory plantings here, which is what we plant for birds. Understory as in this tall Simpson Stopper. So it's not quite the canopy of the trees, it's the next level down. Simpson Stopper has flowers that bring in a lot of pollinators. Birds then feed those little pollinators to their babies. So they're an important food source when they bring in the pollinators. And then the shrub forms a berry that then feeds and sustains birds for longer throughout the year. So if you can only plant one plant for pollinators and birds in your garden, I recommend Firebush, Camellia patens, our native firebush. Firebush has tubular flowers that attract hummingbirds, and Firebush has a berry that brings in birds like our catbirds and all of our migrating songbirds. And it also attracts and is a nectar source for pollinators like butterflies. So this is the size we're talking about when we talk about understory for birds. It's a great height for them to get in and get their food and get out. However, some people might say, this is too large for my garden. So in cases like that we do have some native cultivars that stay a little bit more compact and small, that are cultivars of the native firebush. But if you have the space, this is the plant to plant. This is one of my favorite shrubs for a shady backyard. It's called Marlberry, and you're looking at the berries right now. What's also exciting about this shrub is that in the fall, it has a beautifully scented white flower. So it's sort of a harbinger of fall and cooler weather with its scented flower, and then it has these berries throughout the winter and into summer.
What's exciting about this is the berries ripen over a long period of time, as you can see. So it's a food source for many months for catbirds and northern mockingbirds, cardinals, some of our common fruit-eating birds. This time of year, birds are nesting. And what they're doing is sitting on eggs and incubating them. And in a few weeks' time, they're going to hatch out their little nestlings. Now, at this period of time, they change their diet, the adults do, from fruit and seeds to different kinds of insects to provide protein for the little ones. Young birds, the nestlings, are very susceptible at this time when they're still in the nest. So the birds want to feed them quickly. And they do that by bringing insects to their little ones, a protein source. So having birds in your yard, it's important to also realize that you need to have insects.
So when you apply, that's a titmouse, one of our songbirds, migratory. So when you apply poisons to your landscape, you are destroying the delicate balance of the food web, which means you're killing the insects that birds rely upon to feed their babies. You are also you're adding the pesticides to leaves, which birds ruffle through. You are
And nest in.
And if you're specifically gardening for birds and butterflies, then we say insects, we mean caterpillars for butterflies. We're talking about bees, which are pollinators, which is very linked to our food web. In fact, the food that we rely upon to eat and survive. So pesticides are no bueno for the entire food web. Hey! So a lot of times we have customers come out and they're looking for privacy or a buffer between them and their neighbors, or
they have a neighbor that put in a pool, above ground pool, or put in a second or third story to their property, and all of a sudden you walk out in your backyard and you don't have any privacy anymore.
Yeah, and as human beings, we're uncomfortable when we are expecting to have privacy and we don't. Just like we enjoy having privacy from our neighbors, birds also need privacy in order to feel safe from predators. And when they're nesting, they like to be tucked in. When they're collecting their food, they don't like to be out in the open all the time. So having privacy for birds can be very beneficial for birds, and as well as people. So if you're going to plant a privacy screen, we suggest taking an area of your yard towards the back of your yard and planting shrubs and in layers can really help to not only provide privacy for you for your property, but also privacy for birds.
This grapevine, shuttlary grapes they're called, Calusa grape, provide all sorts of food, not only for us, but also for birds. The grapes are small and loved by birds in the summer months. It also provides shade. If you don't have room for a tree on your property, or you'd like to shade a lanai, this is a way to create a wonderful food supply for yourself and birds, and create summer shade.
So if you don't have a lot of space on your property, or if you're living in a condo, what we suggest is perhaps planting a large pot out in coral honeysuckle is one thing that you could plant in a pot that attracts hummingbirds, pollinators. So it has these bright showy flowers, and if you give it a pot and you can keep it watered with a little bit of fertilizer in the pot, you can have a tiny habitat right outside your balcony or your common space by your door.
Snags are really important to nesting birds. If you look up, and you can actually see them here, there's a red-bellied woodpecker nest up there in the top of the snag.
Snags are trees that are no longer living, but they actually are such a home to so many different insects that we don't call them dead trees. They're actually like hotels for insects, which again is really important for birds. And our nesting pair has also made a home and has a food source.
And of course you wouldn't want the snag up where it would fall into your house.
Or on your customers.
Or on your customers. But if you can keep it, possibly in the back, it's just a wonderful source of material for birds to build nests in. They're pretty much oblivious to us, so they're wonderful to watch in your garden. Birds are part of the web of life. They're part of what we call the food web. They have an integral part in pollinating plants, but also disseminating the seeds of plants. We often don't think about it, but plants are really the fundamental bottom of the pyramid, the most important food source on the planet, not just for us, but for all the creatures here, including birds. We joke with customers that come out that tell them that if you plant, they will come. But it is true. Gardening for wildlife adds such an enjoyment to your yard, and the birds follow you as you garden. We have the catbirds landing just where we've weeded to see what we just produced as a food source for them. Wrens follow us, and I have wrens that nest in my apron pocket every single year.
It's really nice to get to work in this environment because as we're working, all of our resident songbirds are hanging out with us. We get to witness them eating the berries off the shrubs that we've planted for them, which is really rewarding. You do start to feel like a caretaker of the planet when you can see that definite connection between like birds and their food source, and you can be satisfied that you planted it for them. So we welcome you to come out to the nursery, learn more about native plants, see the plants and the birds in our gardens, and let us help you plant for wildlife and nature at your house too.